All right, it's a minute past the hour. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar since it's just a 30-minute session. If you haven't joined us last week, this is a webinar series. So the webinar series is all about how to improve MEP project delivery with connected project data. Last week, we talked about drawings. This week, we're going to be spending time talking about BIM. So today's topic is a project manager's guide to BIM. And if you're interested in registering for the rest of the series, we have 2 more webinars beyond today. On May 11th, we're going to be talking about streamlining submittals with Project MEP. And on May 16th, we're going to be talking about change orders, all about pricing, managing, and executing change orders for profitability. So you can scan the QR code on your screen right now, and it'll take you to a landing page where you can register for both of those upcoming webinars. And today's session is going to be just 30 minutes. It's going to be a quick run through of some capabilities related to BIM for project management. My name is Rachel Webster. I'm the product marketing manager for project management in the MEP team in Trimble. I'm based out of the Denver headquarters office. And Alex, if you want to share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. I'm Alex Pratt, one of the sales engineers here on the VDC and project management side of things. I'll be kind of walking us through the product today. And I come from a background at a mechanical contractor and also a piping manufacturer. So some experience on the design engineering side, coordinating, working with project managers through all the way.
Thanks, Alex. And just a couple of housekeeping notes. If you have any questions throughout today, please just drop them in the question box in the On24 webinar platform. There's a couple different ways you can engage and interact. There, you can move windows around. You can minimize the slides. You can make the video that Alex is going to be walking us through bigger if you need to. So I encourage you to play around with the windows and get everything the way that you want to. But if you have any questions, drop them in the Q&A. I'll be keeping an eye on that. So we'll just go through what we're going to be covering today. We just have a 3-point agenda. We'll be covering some best practices for using BIM to improve project delivery, how to make BIM more accessible to project managers and field professionals. It's a very common struggle in the industry. And lastly, how BIM can connect your teams and workflows across your company. So before we dive into today's topic, I just wanted to ask you, and you can drop it in the questions box, the question, if you're using BIM today on projects, do you feel like you and your teams are getting enough out of the return on investment on BIM today? You can just say like a yes, no, maybe we're feeling better about it, or maybe you're looking for some opportunities to learn some new tips and tricks today. We're just pausing to let those questions come through. We've got one yes. You're feeling good about how you're using BIM today. That's fantastic. Anyone else out there? Got a new to BIM, maybe looking to explore some new solutions or see how you can learn some new tips and tricks. All right, I'll keep us moving, but go ahead and keep dropping those responses into that question. So before we dive into today's demonstration, I just wanted to highlight a couple pain points and opportunities related to BIM that our customers have shared with us related to the MEP trades specifically. You know, if you are using BIM today, any self-performing contractor realizes that you have to detail a model to the specificity of your trade, which is a huge investment. I'm sure Alex has spent a lot of time working with the customers on this. And how can you use all of that data throughout the project, all of the specific parts related to your trade, whether you're mechanical, electrical, plumbing, or HVAC, how can you extract more value from that data is a huge opportunity that we'll be touching on today. Next, going back to how do you make BIM accessible for field professionals, project managers, or really anyone who's not familiar with CAD. Making that information and data accessible to people who need it and can benefit from the model but can't view it, and maybe just due to technical limitations or just experience, there's an opportunity to make the model accessible to them so that they can build faster with a 3D view. We hear from customers that they're actually able to teach people more about their trade and cut their onboarding and time almost in half, just because people can see what they're doing in a model and understand what needs to be done in that 3D view. It's so much easier than having to teach someone how to read drawings, which of course is important, but comes with time. So having another tool in your pocket to keep everyone on the same page is huge, and BIM can be that for you if you can make it accessible for people in the field or project managers or other individuals. And lastly, if you fabricate or perform prefabrication, you're likely creating spools, and a lot of times those aren't accessible to everyone who needs it. So imagine a world in which spooling is completely unlocked. People who don't need CAD software to create, view, edit, or even just status spools. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit today as well. So walking you through Trimble's vision as it relates to project management, it's all about connected project management from design to done. So we're going to be spending a lot of time talking today about design related to project management, just the nature of BIM, but our vision, Trimble's vision related to project management, is to take you all the way through these points that you see on your screen now, from design and detailing, which we're going to be talking about today, connecting to estimating, prefabrication, of course, all of the necessary requirements of project management itself, and then even beyond to Trimble hardware, if you use anything like that, with field layout solutions, etc. And also back to your finances, to the back office team, connecting you to an accounting system or ERP. It's all about getting information to the teams that need it so that you can perform projects more efficiently and more profitably. And just to introduce what we're going to be talking about more specifically today, we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about Trimble Connect, which is a platform across our project management solutions and across many of our solutions. And it's all about the one source of truth across your projects, creating that backbone of data, creating that common data environment. It makes all of your information more transparent and more traceable because people can access the model. And the screenshot that's on your screen right now is how you can link that model from a project across your project and connect views and to-dos, and really creating one cohesive story of your BIM and all of your project files across the project. And a common hurdle that we hear is, what about you need to access the latest version of the model? Models are always getting updated. They're huge files, and just managing them by themselves can be pretty tricky. So the great part about Connect is that it updates that file on the back end so that you always have the latest model and you're pushing that out to the field and others. So that's just a high-level intro of what we're going to be covering today, and I'm going to hand it over to Alex, who's going to show us how it works.
Great, thanks, Rachel. We'll jump right in here, and we'll kind of pick up where, if those of you who joined us last week, they could start in kind of the drawings portion of ProjectSight. And so we'll show you really quickly one simple method of kind of incorporating the model right into what you might already be doing on the drawing side. So here we are inside of ProjectSight, and once we get our drawings uploaded, pretty common task that I used to do in working with the contractor is set up views that were ready to go for the project managers, the people in the field, so that they didn't have to navigate around as much to get to a particular area. So one way of doing that is to set up level views. So on the sheet, we'll click into here to our document set. We can set up a button right on our sheet alongside the rest of our comments. So here at the top left corner, we've got a button here for level 1. And this will give us a direct link to that view of the model, just like you see in the thumbnail. So when we click on that, that's bringing us to that Connect model. So on projects that have this modeling component, we can really easily and start to incorporate it and streamline project management to field side to utilizing that model, if nothing else, just for visual, right? And so in this model viewer, you've got a lot of typical markup tools. You can measure, make comments. Here we're using clipping planes to set up this view itself. But we also have file storage within Connect. So you see ProjectSight documents there on the bottom. This is a lot of the documentation on ProjectSight, the project management side, being stored in this platform as well. But we also have other folders set up here for our field points, our models, etc. So use that kind of as a central storage platform. Here are some of the different apps that we have available around Connect. So we have mobile and phone apps on the tablet that you can download the model for use offline if you don't have Wi-Fi on the job site or whatever the case might be. There's also sync tools, so we can sync files from a local computer up to Connect and keep our project folders updated that way. And then we also have publishing apps for Revit, so we can publish that model that we might be detailing in Revit right to our Connect platform. And so with those models, we'll jump in here to the model viewer that's built right into Connect. So here we've got our different files. We'll just click on one to open that viewer up. And once that loads, you can see we've got several different models layered all on top of each other here. The nice thing about Connect is we can read a lot of file types. So we've got a Tekla file, we have a SketchUp file, we have a Revit file from our architect, and then we have our MEP files that we also detailed with Revit Siskiyou. And so as we turn off the layers, kind of peel back the onion here on the model, we can start to digest this and use the different components to help facilitate, clash coordination, production management, all sorts of different things by using what we've got in this model viewer. So I'll just navigate around. Here we're going to come across a little area that needs some tweaking. We've got a VAV box that's sitting right on top of a cable tray. So we'll kind of mark this up right in this model viewer and then show how that ties back to ProjectSight on the project management side of things. So here I can use my markup tools right within the site of Connect. So we've got clouds, text, arrows, anything, kind of the typical tools you'd expect to be able to mark up. We can do measurements as well. So here we're just going to mark this up, throw a little note on it, adjust the VAV out of this cable tray, clear that clash up. And then we'll save this view. And when we save that view, then we'll have the ability to tie that to a project management record in ProjectSight. So here we'll fill out some details, give it a title, a little description on what the issue is. And then once we save that, that'll be available for us within ProjectSight. I just see a question here that came through. Generates 3D model from the plan on its own, or do they do that through Revit? So yeah, the modeling itself is done. In this case, we're using Siskiyou inside of Revit. So that's Trimble Siskiyou is an add-on to give you manufacturer-specific content that allows you to kind of get to a fine level of detail that you can coordinate, can start to order and procure from, you can do prefabrication off of. And so yeah, that question, the modeling is generated in this case in Revit, but the nice thing about Connect, again, with all of those different file types, is we can kind of digest many different platforms as far as the drawing platform. So we have our issue marked up in the model view, and now we're going to tie that to this issue record inside of ProjectSight. So here we've got our duct and cable tray clash as an issue in our log. I can open this up, and now I can use the paperclip, which we'll see kind of throughout ProjectSight as you see more of it, where we can link all kinds of things to our records. And in this case, we're going to link a Connect model view. So now I can search through my list. I can get that issue view up. I click on it, and now I have a direct link through that thumbnail right back to that model view that we were just on with our markups and all of that saved right to it. Okay, so again, we can click on that. It'll bring us right back into Connect. So from here, we'll take a look at a little bit more of the functionality. As far as our save views, we can create groupings around these to help us organize things a little better. We can also turn on and off our annotations or clipping planes to make things, more easily viewable. And now here, we're just going to turn on some other aspects. So let's say around that issue that we just created, we want to start to kind of tackle that adjustment. So we can turn back on our architecture and our structure. We can take some measurements to help us figure out, okay, how far do things need to adjust in that particular example to help us resolve that issue. So here we're going to use our clipping plane, take the roof down, but we still have all of our architecture and our structure elements visible. So now we can pull measurements off, pull a measurement from this beam here to our VAV box. The nice thing about this is it gives us perpendicular measurements kind of right out of the gates, so that makes it a little bit simplified as far as getting to that exact dimension. You can also do straight line dimensions, but if you hold control, kind of help give some additional functionality there. And we're going to measure off of this wall here to our clearance zone, and then we'll take a quick measurement of the clearance zone to the cable tray, and that'll kind of show us how far do we need to move this to clear this issue up, right? And so we still have that saved view that's part of that issue. Anything that we're changing on this part of it is not affecting that. We still have that as our saved view, so we can always go back to see what that original issue was. And then we can add additional notation on here as we kind of resolve this. In our grouping here of view, we also have an RFI section in this case. So this is something that we created to help us organize things a little bit better. Yeah, and here you can see we've got all of these view cropped down in 4 directions already, so that when we get to that, we're really zeroed in on what it is we're asking our question about. And then from there, the user can adjust the planes or turn things on and off depending on what level of detail they want to see. And so again, this is something that we can attach right to an RFI inside a ProjectSight to help us get that information across to whoever we need to ask the question of. So once we've made those adjustments, kind of taken a look, we can reset the model to get back to our starting point just by hitting the button there in the center. And that'll bring us back to our ISO view. And now we'll take a look at the organizer. So this is a pretty cool function inside of Connect that differentiates it from other model viewers. Here I can search any of the properties behind the model elements. So when we detail something inside of Siskiyou and Revit, for instance, there's a lot of information behind every fitting, every piece of pipe, and we can create groupings around that information within Connect. So here we can see a pretty common one is setting up our system groups. So now I can click this button and I can see really quickly what are all the different systems on the job. A lot of companies will have a standard set of colors that they use for the different systems, so they know immediately when they look at something that this is supply air, this is return air, this is heating water, etc. So we can do that same functionality within here. We can also do things like create a quick spool map. Another one here, we've got pipe insulation, so that depending on what you're doing, you might want to turn that on and off. So we can create a grouping around that, select the pipe insulation with one click, and then hit the hide button if we want to get rid of that. So here down at the bottom, we can do different visual selections, turn that insulation off. Now we can see the pipe and the fittings underneath. And that's helpful when we get into prefab. We don't need to see the insulation. We want to see what are the cut lengths of the pipe, what fittings do we need. We've created another grouping here around spool tags. So now my project manager or my foreman can come in and get a really quick high-level overview of this is how we're spooling this project up. Here are start and stop points. And then within each of these groups, they are clickable. So when I click that particular spool group, it's going to highlight all of the components within there. And the nice thing about this also is it ties back into the data table, which we'll look at here in a second. And there's actually a schedule of values that'll populate based on what our selection is or based on what's in our view. So another way of getting the data out of what's behind each of these model elements. And then another one that's a great use of the organizer as far as groupings is keeping track of status. So inside of Connect, we can set statuses of items as we are going through the coordination or the fabrication process. And now we can visualize those statuses with this organizer tool. So here we have our fabrication, shipped, installed, a couple other statuses in there. And as things are status, we can click on those. We can get what are the total lengths. Depending on the level of information you have behind your model content, you could have cost codes. You could have labor data, for instance, in there, and you could really get a pretty good picture of things just by clicking through these different statuses, depending on the data available. So here we're going to change this data table. Now we have this up on the bottom. We're going to change this to everything in our view is what we want kind of visually seen in the data table. So now you can see that the different statuses are broken out. So we can kind of drill into each of those statuses to get more information. But at a high level view, we can see in the installed section, we've got 560 feet of installed ductwork. And down on the bottom there, we've got 2,600 feet overall for this level. So just with those few numbers, we can start to kind of digest again the data behind what it is we've modeled, more on the project management and field side of things, using that data outside of, purely just for coordination. I can also customize these data tables. So it's a schedule and it's looking at values that are coming from the model elements. And if I wanted to add additional information, I can go into that column selector, drag over my information, save that. And now each time I open that, that schedule, it's going to have those columns available for me. Okay. So kind of moving along the same status realm here, how can we incorporate, aside from some of the data, how can we incorporate that back on the ProjectSight side? So once we status things, say that the foreman comes in, he statuses this as installed at the end of the day. He can then save that view with this area that we've got installed. And now again, I can save that view and tie it to my daily report on ProjectSight. So here we'll go in, create a view, give that a title. I've got one created here already for yesterday's progress. So here we go. Look at the details, but daily progress 5.1. Give us some information as far as a description. Here's what we did. We installed ductwork in the open office number 409. Save that view. We can share that view with somebody by tagging them, and they'll get an email with a direct link on back to Connect to open that view. But now that the view is saved in Connect, we can access it back in ProjectSight. So now that we're in ProjectSight, we'll go to our daily report section. We'll open that up here. So that's under field management, daily reports, and then we'll create a new one here for yesterday. So we'll hit the plus button to add, select our day. And the nice thing on the daily report side of things, it automatically brings in the weather information from the ProjectSight address, whatever the closest weather station is. We can also capture labor information, equipment information, so we can have a library of equipment right within ProjectSight that we typically use, and we can just pull that in as we use it. And then down here in the notes section, again, we can add any additional notes or comments on what we did that day, and then we'll pull in that view right from Connect that shows this is the ductwork status as complete, installed, and here's the area. So now the project manager can log in, doesn't have to visit the job site to get a really clear picture of what work was done that day. If there was an issue with work that was being done and something got put on hold, they could outline that, save that view. The nice thing too on the tablet side of things, right within this daily report, they can attach a picture from the device. So while I'm in my daily report capture, I can take a picture, add that right in alongside that model view. So a lot of nice functionality to kind of bridge the gap, use the model along with the typical field workflow, and just enhancing the data that we're capturing for our project management purpose. So here we'll kind of back out. We'll look at a piping example. Here we'll open up our pipe model. Navigate around here. And this is an extension that's specific to MEP called Connect to Fab. And so this is a way of using that model data that we're producing in Revit and allowing the field team, the shop team now to see that prefab information directly applied on the model. And so when we look at this, here's our spool map view again. We can see how we're breaking this project up as far as what we're prefabbing. And then we can isolate each of these spools, and we're going to get dimensions on here with our piece numbers automatically applied. So this can really streamline the process of going through that spooling, what was kind of a tedious process inside of Revit, creating spool sheets, dimensioning them all, labeling things, generating schedules. This takes that information that's already there and applies that inside the model viewer to help streamline that entire process. And now within here, we can capture that status. So we have a status drop down within Connect to Fab to help us easily apply those as we go. So as things get produced, they can be marked as fabricated and so on. And so then with the data table, again, we can use those schedules, see what we need to fabricate, kind of streamlines that entire workflow in one spot. Here we'll look at a little bit more elaborate example. So pretty common is a pipe and fitting, but you could spool up, we've done this entire bathroom group here, and it'll show us the dimensions the same way. So we isolate this. So here's all our dimensions applied, again, automatically. And then in that data table, we can capture all of the parts, the fittings, the pipe, anything that we have selected there will populate this table for us as a schedule. And so then again, just to tie this back on the ProjectSight side, I could use an action item, for instance, inside ProjectSight, and we could use this around spooling. So now I can start to assign what are these packages that we would like to spool up, and I can again refer back to that model view through ProjectSight with that saved view function. And then within ProjectSight, we can assign this. So here I assign this to person that needs to start working on it. And then again, I'll attach my view here to kind of direct them exactly to where we need to go to start that production. So kind of a high level overview. That was a really quick run through of Connect and the different features of it. But hopefully that kind of demonstrates how we can use those model elements, use the data behind the model, not only just for visually coordinating things, making sure it's going to fit in the right spot, but then really taking that data and using it more for project management and planning, those types of things.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. We don't have any questions that have come through quite yet, but if there are any, please feel free to drop those into the Q&A, and I'll go ahead and start moving us towards the end of our presentation since we have just 2 minutes. So I just want to highlight, we have several customers who are using workflows related to this. This specific quote is talking about a connection between estimating and project turnover, but we also have customers who are utilizing this Connect workflow. And going back to what we kind of talked about at the beginning of this session, Trimble's vision is to connect project management, especially as it relates to the MEP trades, so that everyone has the information they need to deliver their best work. And I'll just highlight the top part of this quote from John Diglio at Unity Electric. It's all about staying at the forefront of your industry, and sometimes technology and investing in new processes and exploring tools like what we're sharing today can help you do that. And just to highlight for anyone who wasn't here at the top of the webinar, this is one part of a series. Last week we covered drawings. Today is BIM. Next week is submittals, and the week after that is change orders. So if you're interested in seeing how we walk through all of these different connected workflows that are included in the Project MEP solution, scan the QR code on your screen right now, and it'll take you to a landing page where you can register for both of those webinars. And with that, we are just at the top of the half hour. Thank you all for joining today. Thank you, Alex, for walking us through the solutions. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at mepwebinars@trimble.com. Any emails to that address come directly to this team. And thank you for everyone for joining us today. Hope you found it interesting.